Every legend has a beginning.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into what is, without a doubt, one of the most emotional, surprising, and truly inspiring comeback stories in the entire history of business. You know, we live in a world that is completely obsessed with youth. We are constantly hearing about young tech billionaires, 20-something prodigies, or overnight success stories that make it feel like if you haven't made it by 30, you've somehow missed your window. But today we're looking at a story that completely shatters every single preconceived notion about when, where, and exactly how success is supposed to happen. It is an absolute masterclass in perseverance, and the lessons we're going to extract from this journey are going to fundamentally change how you view failure. So settle in, because this story is a wild ride. Let's dive right into this.
I want you to stop for a second and really picture this scenario. Imagine you've spent your entire adult life working tirelessly. We're talking decades of grinding, surviving through extreme hardship, and pouring your blood, sweat, and tears into building something. You finally managed to build a successful, stable business with your own two hands. You can finally breathe. And then, at the exact age when society tells you it's time to retire, kick your feet up and relax, it is all gone. Completely wiped out. Everything you built just vanishes, and you're left standing there with virtually nothing to your name except for a tiny, barely enough to survive on Social Security check. How would you feel?
It's an incredibly heavy question to wrestle with. Most people, entirely understandably, would simply accept defeat right then and there. They'd blame the economy, they'd curse their bad luck, and they would quietly fade into their twilight years, spending the rest of their days thinking bitterly about what could have been. But Harland Sanders? He made a completely different choice. To truly understand how a man in his mid-60s could somehow find the sheer, stubborn willpower to start completely over from zero, we have to look back at the foundation that built him. Because the breathtaking resilience Sanders showed at age 65, that wasn't just pulled out of thin air. It wasn't some sudden burst of motivation. It was a muscle he had been building for decades, forged in the fires of a lifetime of devastating hardship that, ironically, prepared him perfectly for his ultimate defining moment. When you look at the timeline of his early life, it doesn't just look like a string of bad luck. It looks like a relentless series of tragedies. But in reality, it was a masterclass in grit. At just 6 years old, his father passes away suddenly. The family is thrown into absolute chaos. His mother is immediately forced into grueling, long hours of factory work just to keep them alive, which leaves 7-year-old Harlan to look after his younger siblings and cook the family meals. Now, I want you to think about that. He wasn't cooking for fun or as a hobby. He was a child cooking for pure survival. By the time he was 12, he had to leave school entirely to go to work. And the struggle didn't stop there. Throughout his 20s and 30s, he bounced through dozens of failed jobs. He painted carriages, he worked as a streetcar conductor, he did backbreaking work on the railroad. He even briefly practiced law before losing that opportunity to a heated argument in a courtroom. Most people would look at this resume and see a lifetime of scattered failure. But Sanders was unknowingly collecting vital life lessons. Every single failed job taught him something about discipline, about human nature, about customer service, or sometimes simply what not to do. After decades of searching, stumbling, and starting over, he eventually found a glimmer of true purpose in the 1930s. He managed to scrape together enough to open a small service station in Corbin, Kentucky. And this, right here, is where the story starts to get truly fascinating. You see, he didn't set out to build a restaurant empire. He was just a guy trying to make a living, and he started feeding hungry travelers while they waited for their cars to get fueled up. But here's the thing, his food was so incredibly good, people actually stopped coming for the gas and started coming just for the meals. However, he had a massive problem. Traditional pan frying took way too long. Hungry, exhausted travelers on the road don't want to wait 45 minutes for a meal. That meant lost sales and frustrated customers. So Sanders began experimenting. He was a tinkerer. He took a newly invented, highly pressurized device, a pressure cooker, and daringly adapted it for frying chicken. This was a game changer. It allowed him to cook the chicken incredibly fast, completely solving the time issue, while simultaneously keeping the inside perfectly juicy and the outside flawlessly crispy. Combine that groundbreaking technique with his secret blend of herbs and spices, which took him years of patient trial and error to perfect, and he had single-handedly revolutionized the entire fast food experience. The reputation of this perfectly cooked, mouth-watering chicken spread like wildfire across the entire state of Kentucky. Food critics came and raved about it, and travelers were literally planning their entire cross-country road trips just to swing by his dining room. His food became so renowned, so culturally significant to the area, that the governor of Kentucky actually awarded him the highly prestigious honorary title of Kentucky Colonel.
And Sanders, he leaned into this completely. He started wearing a pristine white suit, a black string tie, and sporting a neatly trimmed white goatee. He was crafting a legendary, unforgettable personal brand decades before the term personal branding even existed. Customers didn't just trust the quality of the chicken. They trusted the warm, authentic, larger-than-life Southern gentleman standing behind the counter. For the very first time in his chaotic, difficult life, everything had finally come together. He had wealth, he had deep respect in his community, and he had a thriving, famous business. But in a cruel twist of fate, just as he finally tasted genuine success, the world literally shifted beneath his feet. In the early 1950s, the American landscape changed forever. The new interstate highway system was built, promising faster travel for everyone. But that new highway completely bypassed his booming restaurant by several miles. Almost overnight, the endless, highly profitable stream of cars completely vanished. The bustling parking lot emptied out. The vibrant dining room grew dead quiet. And here is the truly heartbreaking part. It wasn't his fault. His food hadn't changed. His customer service hadn't dropped. The world around him had simply moved on. Forced to sell his quiet, empty restaurant at a massive loss just to pay off his mounting bills, he found himself starting completely over at 65 years old. The dream was dead, the money was gone, and all he had to show for a lifetime of relentless hard work was a small monthly Social Security check. Faced with absolute, total ruin at an age when most people are completely winding down, he could have broken. He didn't curse the government, he didn't bitterly complain to anyone who would listen about his terrible luck. Instead, he sat down and asked himself a single, profoundly powerful question. What do I still have? I want you to really let that sink in. It's a question that entirely shifts your psychological focus away from the devastating loss and redirects it squarely onto opportunity. Through that lens, he realized something incredible. His greatest asset wasn't that brick-and-mortar building he had just been forced to sell. His true wealth wasn't physical at all. It was the intellectual property he held securely in his mind, his perfectly crafted secret recipe, and his revolutionary, high-speed cooking process. This realization birthed a completely unconventional, brilliantly audacious new strategy. Now, today, franchising is everywhere. We don't even think twice about it. But for an independent broke restaurant owner back then, this was a shockingly bold move. Here was his pitch. Step 1. He would personally travel to existing restaurant owners, walk right into their kitchens, and cook his chicken for them to prove exactly how good it was. Step 2. If they tasted it and loved it, he would allow them to use his top secret recipe and his patented pressure frying method. Step 3. He wouldn't ask for some massive, unpayable upfront fee. Instead, he just wanted a small, completely reasonable royalty, just a few cents, for every single chicken they sold. It was genius. He didn't need millions of dollars to build new physical restaurants. He could scale infinitely by partnering with the infrastructure that other people had already built. But let's be incredibly real for a second. Having a revolutionary, brilliant business model written down on paper means absolutely nothing if you can't actually find people who believe in it enough to take a risk on you. And the day-to-day reality of executing this grand plan, it was unimaginably brutal. At an age when his peers were playing golf, spending time with grandchildren, or just sitting peacefully on their porches, Sanders packed heavy commercial pressure cookers, giant bags of flour, and his precious secret spices into the trunk of his car and hit the unforgiving road. He drove endlessly across America. To save what little cash he had, he would frequently sleep in the cramped back seat of his car. He ate his own leftover cold chicken for meals. He would walk into busy diners unannounced in his pristine white suit and pitch his wild idea. And time after time, day after day, restaurant owners would look at him, shake their heads, and literally laugh him out of the building. I mean, think about their perspective. Why on earth would they pay some random guy in a white suit a royalty for a chicken recipe when they already sold their own food? The historical estimates of this journey vary, but it is widely cited and deeply embedded in business lore that he faced over 1,000 rejections. Over 1,000 times he looked someone in the eye, poured his heart out, and heard a flat, dismissive no. He was mocked. He was dismissed as a crazy old man. He was entirely ignored. Think about the agonizing psychological toll of that. Every single rejection meant another tank of gas he could barely afford, another night in a cold car. But every single morning, without fail, he woke up, he meticulously pressed that iconic white suit, he straightened his black string tie, and he boldly walked through another door. Failure never convinced him to quit.
To Sanders, every no just pointed him to the next potential opportunity. And eventually, through sheer unadulterated force of will, he found a few believers. A few desperate or curious owners tasted the chicken, saw how incredibly fast it cooked, realized the profit potential, and finally said yes. And suddenly, the pure magic of his franchise system became undeniably clear. Because his pressure frying technique and that secret spice blend were so highly standardized, the chicken tasted exactly the same whether you bought it in a dusty diner in Utah or a sunny restaurant in Florida. This consistency, this ironclad guarantee of quality, created massive customer trust. People driving across the country began to recognize the Kerning's smiling face on the signs. They knew exactly what high quality they were going to get, and sales simply exploded. What began as a desperate, lonely, exhausting road trip by a broke 65-year-old man transformed, seemingly overnight, into a snowballing corporate empire that forever changed the face of global business. The momentum he had been building for decades became entirely unstoppable. By 1964, Sanders was 73 years old. The business had grown so rapidly and so massively that it required a huge corporate team and infrastructure just to manage the unbelievable demand. Recognizing his own limits, Sanders made the pivotal, highly emotional decision to sell the company to a group of investors for $2 million. Now, $2 million in the mid-1960s was a staggering fortune, but in a brilliant negotiating move that cemented his immortality, he ensured he would remain the beloved, highly recognizable public face of the brand. For the rest of his life, he traveled the world, strictly protecting his legacy, doing quality control, and shaking hands with the millions of customers who genuinely loved his creation. He proved to everyone that true success isn't just about the money in the bank, it's about the countless lives you touch and the enduring legacy you build. And when you look at the sheer scale of that legacy today, it is absolutely mind-blowing. From a quiet, bypassed, empty highway in Corbin, Kentucky, his incredible persistence built an empire that currently serves millions of happy customers across more than 150 countries and territories every single day. Every single bucket of chicken sold globally, in every language, traces directly back to a man who simply refused to take no for an answer. When we look back at his life, there are 5 incredibly powerful lessons we can all take away. Number 1, it is never, ever too late. Age is not your enemy. Giving up is. Number 2, rejection is just part of the journey. It hurts, but remember, one single yes can entirely erase 1,000 no's. Number 3, protect your greatest skill. Sanders lost his physical restaurant, but his deep knowledge, his recipe, was his true indestructible wealth. Number 4, build trust before wealth. People bought into the Colonel's absolute authenticity way before they ever bought into a massive, faceless corporation. And number 5, never stop learning. He adapted to a completely new, radical franchise business model when he was deep into his 60s. He is living proof that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the exact rocky path you must take to get there. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought. I want you to look at exactly where you are right now in your own life. The next time you feel like you're running out of time, or you start to believe that your past failures have permanently defined who you are, I want you to remember Harland Sanders. Do not let your age, do not let your past missteps, and absolutely do not let your fears stop you from knocking on just one more door. Because no matter where you are in life, no matter how many times you've had to start over, your greatest story might just be getting started.